The songs are
Sharks, jets, sharks, jets. We're going to talk about West Side Story today. This is SJU, and we're going to talk about lots of things. The Spider-Verse trailer came out today. We have some data on The Last Jedi. I know it's been 265 days since our imprisonment, Dan, but we actually have new information here. The set's falling apart. Spencer Gilbert's here. It's Billy Business. It's Dan Murrell, Roth, Cornet. Everything's on track for an SJU to go down in the books. Are you ready? So into sure. Into the Spider-Verse, a new trailer was released this morning. We got to hear a little bit of Nick Cage's Spider-Man War. We saw a little more of Spider-Ham. Peter Porker over there. They are really, I think, in the marketing at the moment. First of all, this movie looks fantastic. I cannot wait for it to get inside my eyeballs right now. I think it's going to be one of those surprise hits. But Sony, I think, with their marketing, is smartly laying the groundwork for those who may not understand it. For what the Spider-Verse is and how these people are all coming together from different dimensions, but not in a way that feels like didactic and boring. Dan, what'd you think?
It looks really fun. I mean, everything about this movie that, I think the first trailer was more the look of the film, what this movie's going to look like, the very unique style. And I think this is very much more the tone of the film, and I like both of them. I love how it looks. This looks really funny. It looks like... the Spider-Man films are sort of trapped in their own, not trapped, but, they have an interesting path as far as, the first three and the third one, and then the reboot didn't quite work. And this is kind of their way to Deadpool it a little bit, it seems like, and sort of be self-aware, self-referential, step outside of it, have some fun with it, which sometimes this has been a franchise, strangely, given that Spider-Man is one of the most quippiest, most kind of fun superheroes. A lot of times the movies are kind of bogged down. I thought Spider-Man Homecoming, that was what I liked the most about it, was it kind of got the fun part of Spider-Man right more than probably any of the other films. So the
energy issue of that character.
So I like that they're found a way to sort of be self-referential, acknowledge the crazy little pockets of the mythos, and have a good time.
It's definitely Miles is the protagonist in this, clearly, which is another thing that I think they're emphasizing very well in these trailers. It overtly says this is not about me. It's about this guy over here.
Good picking up on that symbolism.
Well, I read a couple.
What could it mean?
I can read a couple. I'm like, oh, it's the snake Easter egg. I read a few levels deep. Billy Business. Did you like it?
Oh yeah, I read Bendis's in Spider-Verse back in the day, which was basically about all the Spider-Man coming together because there was this weird family that was eating and killing all the different spiders from all the different universes.
What?
Like exactly. Like the best comic book movies, especially lately, they're taking seeds of that, but...
I just have to stop it. They were eating the spiders or the Spider-Man?
The Spider people, because it's not always a Spider-Man in the universe. There's obviously there's Spider-Gwen.
But why they were eating humans?
Yeah, they were like not of this world.
They weren't all bit by the same radioactive spider. Like they all have different origin stories.
No, I know that. But
You're
I'm asking
the,
about
the bad guys. They were like killing them.
Okay.
To give them more
power.
They
were cannibalizing them.
I believe so. It's been
Very
a while since I read it.
Look, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of these Jeffrey Dahmer-like villains in this story that I don't think we're going to see in this.
The bad guy in this one's the Kingpin, Roth. Don't
movie.
worry about it.
Exactly.
60,
eating all of the spider.
Well, that'd be cool.
60, 70 years later, you got to evolve your villains just to straight up cannibals.
There he is.
But I like that they took. Oh my God, look at that chin.
Little face.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a Dick Tracy villain. They took the seeds of that for this, which I really like. Which some of the most fun stuff in that Spider-Verse comic was like they had like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was part of it, and the 1994 cartoon was part of it, and they definitely reference Tobey's Spider-Man at the beginning of this trailer, which I think is kind of fun. So I think there's going to be like Lego Batman. There's going to be tons of Spider Easter eggs in this thing. I think it's going to be like Ready Player One level of Spider Easter eggs.
Will it be a whole web of eggs?
Yeah, a whole brood full of disgusting eggs that hatch into tiny little bonus videos.
Have I ever told you how much I like spiders? Spencer, give us your take.
You know what? This movie looks good.
Hot takes here on SJU.
I love Lord and Miller. Let's not forget they're doing this instead of Solo, and it definitely feels.
Well, they're producing, yeah.
But I think Lorde wrote it. One of them wrote it.
Yes, Lorde, I believe, did.
So it's got everything that their movies bring you. I think this feels like the Lego movie in a little bit, where like there is a lot going on. There will be thousands of Easter eggs and other things being pulled in, but at the core of it, like they have a strong central thought of like it's what makes you different that makes you Spider-Man, and then the whole plot and all the action actually services an idea instead of just throwing things at the screen just because they're cool. Like the multiverse actually seems to work with the message of the film, from what I'm seeing of just the trailer. The art looks so cool.
Yeah.
The animation looks incredible. And like, don't get me wrong, Pixar's great. Miyazaki's great, but this is its own thing. And I haven't seen something like this in a feature animated film before. It's like a mix of so many different styles, and the way it moves is really cool. Who wouldn't want to watch this movie?
I don't know. I mean, I genuinely I think that, I don't know this for a fact. My general sense is that maybe Sony's nervous about this one because they think that it's maybe too heady for the average viewer to get, that they don't understand where it breaks apart from Tom Holland's Spider-Man and things like that.
I mean, I wonder what the projections are for it, but I imagine they will beat them.
We'll do a little light Googling on that.
Yeah.
But even
They're a
though
little
productions
far out.
are super unpredictable, I'm like so bullish about this. I
Yeah.
feel like it's going to be such a hit for all of the reasons that we've mentioned and more, because I feel like I have faith in an audience to like sort of get it, you know, just from this trailer, like, okay, well, maybe if that's not something that I was familiar with before, I get it, and it looks so entertaining and so beautiful. I'm in to watch
But
it.
do you
I
think?
think-
Oh, sorry.
I think a comic book audience of maybe 15 years ago might have trouble grasping it, but I also think that they've been trained now to know what dimensions and universe. I mean, Thor's running around with rock people, and you know, we're gonna have something with Infinity War, I'm sure, with some way of turning back time or jumping into soul stones, or you know, I think if I were Sony 15 years ago, I might worry a little bit more about audience confusion, but I also think their target audience has sort of been trained the last 15 years or so to be like, okay, well, sure. There's a Hadron Collider and it opens up a dimensional rift. Okay.
And there's just a bunch of Spider-Man. And also, I think television, different in the DC verse, which is different, but still, I think has trained audiences into the idea of like multiple versions of the same character.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be such a hit, but maybe
I do
don't
wonder,
know.
like,
I'm not.
if Venom does not satisfy. I haven't seen it, but it looks like maybe is not the movie people wanted. Like, I wonder if that'll have kind of a effect on like no more Spider-Man things. You know, like, kind of like Solo in a sense.
I don't know, because to be honest, I don't even know if people would mentally make the connection. Even though it's all in the Spider-Man universe,
Yeah.
I feel like it feels so different and so distinct from Venom.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
I don't even connect this with. I'm not like, where's Tom Holland when I watch this? Like, this is so its own thing.
I'm calling it now. I think there's going to be an Easter egg where Tom Holland just does like a one-word line cameo as the Homecoming Spider-Man. Like, what am I doing here? And then it cuts right away.
If he's
Maybe.
allowed, yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know what they'd have to pay him for that.
Just put my prediction down now.
All right. Leave your predictions in
Marking
the
your
comments
words.
below.
Marking my words
Yes.
now.
11
10 to.
I think
14 a.m.
I really think they're going to want to keep
Tuesday,
them pretty
October
separate,
2nd.
but I could be wrong. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if it's like the
says-
Spider-Verse comic where they went out of their way to even put in like that, what was it? Was it Chinese or Japanese? They did a Spider-Man TV show for like one
Yes,
series.
Japanese Spider-Man.
They put him in that Spider-Verse. It was every Spider-Verse.
he turned into a robot.
Yeah, every universe. So I think it'd be fun.
All right.
Or even have like Andrew Garfield do like an uncredited one line.
Oh, if they get all the Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Venom is going to open up this weekend, so we'll see how audiences react to that. We're already starting to see a few responses trickle in.
Mixed to positive.
I haven't read them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Trying
sorry.
not to.
Yeah, mixed to positive,
Yeah, I've
largely.
seen mixed to real negative. But I guess it depends on who you're looking at.
I think that people also, well, look, we've talked about this a bit before, but quite frankly, the place that you're likely to see the most positive reactions coming out of anything is from the premiere. People are going to be in a state to feel good about the thing because they're feeling a part of it, even though they're not. And during that night, well, they're not. You know, you're like,
Yeah, it's a party for everyone who worked on it, and then people
who
are watching that.
Yeah,
happen.
exactly. People who are watching that happen, and then you like vicariously, I think, feel like you're a part of something that you're not.
But you're not.
None of us are. We did not make the movie.
Nor, as you could probably tell, were we invited to the
No,
premiere.
which will actually not play into our response to the film.
We've never been invited to
all.
any premieres.
I've been invited to lots of premieres, just
okay.
not since I've been at ScreenJunkies.
Well, sorry we brought you down, Roth.
No, I would rather be here and not at a premiere than other places and at a premiere.
It's the
any day. That's the truth.
It is the worst place to, I think I've said this on the air before, it is the worst place to watch a movie if you're going to review it, because it's a different vibe. It's a whole, you're watching it with the most enthusiastic crowd that will ever watch the movie. It's very tough to get, because, excitement is infectious.
It is.
It's tough to get a good peg on a movie at a premiere.
Exactly. And this isn't even said in a cynical way, really. I mean, I've been to some premieres, though, that I did not like the movie, and it had zero effect on whether I liked or disliked the movie at all. RoboCop remake, I'm looking at you. But it is infectious, and it's the same thing with a film festivals. But first of all, you often have altitude sickness at a film festival, but add to that, you kind of have to like look at your score of a movie and be like, how much did just the festival of it play into what I thought about that movie?
This should be interesting to bring up next to Billy. The one premiere I've been to that really made me love the film was Detroit Rock City.
Sure.
Yeah, baby.
Where I sat in the same row as Prince, and it was followed up by a Kiss concert. So I was like, this is the best movie ever made.
I've only seen the legendary Kiss concert you speak of in DVD special features. I can't believe
It was a legendary concert?
I mean,
Among Kiss fans.
Among Kiss fans.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't imagine Prince sitting through that movie.
We thought someone had brought their child, but it turned out to just be a really tall model. And Prince. Oh my God!
Yeah,
I wouldn't even
him
like,
liking
did you
that.
talk to him?
No.
Come
one
on,
talked to him.
you gotta
Talk
talk
to
to
Prince.
Chris.
First of all, I was young, very young. My mom probably told me who it was, and
You didn't know who Prince was?
I knew who Prince was, but
Okay.
still, it was not like as big of a deal to me back
At
then.
that
as it would've
age,
been to-
yes. I'm Spencer and I are of about the same age. And when that movie came out in '99, I knew who Prince was, but like I didn't know who Prince was. Like it takes a while sometimes to process,
process the
understand,
Princeness of Prince.
so that someone is something
That's
more than a
fair.
personality.
I was much more excited at the Kiss concert because a lot of fire shot out of a lot of things.
And it still does.
Yeah.
Kiss Into the Road Tour coming to a city near you next year.
I think that's true in general, and like we often don't appreciate artists and like until they've passed, to the depth that we should.
Yeah.
Well,
Also,
then-
your taste is horrible from childhood to adulthood. Everyone's taste is horrible,
Sure.
except for mine right now.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that, except for disagree and say that it was mine and not yours.
Yes. No.
So,
But mine. But I agree.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm glad we're aligned on that. My taste is the one that should win. Speaking
Oh,
of which, this is actually
It's the internet personified.
This is actually.
I hear you, but I don't want to listen.
Right.
So,
I
no.
think
I'm just
that what
gonna
you're
interpret it
saying-
as I'm right.
Yeah.
And we can move on.
We can move on
knowing-
from there.
I accept your apology.
Yeah.
And we move on.
Yeah. This is actually leading us. I had more to say on the Spider-Verse and about premieres. Oh, quick button on premieres. In general, not just premieres, but anything, I think that your expectations going into a movie so profoundly affects your experience and your enjoyment of that film. You can go in, and that's why I'm always a little cautious about like touting how much I love something, because I don't want people to go in and get disappointed and not have a good experience. Does not stop me sometimes, but it's with Venom, I think people, the marketing hasn't done the best job of selling this movie. And I think as a result, people walked in and maybe were more entertained than they thought they would be and enjoyed that experience more, is my guess, but we'll find out when we see it
Tonight.
this afternoon.
But I feel like Spider-Verse premiere would be awesome because I'm going into it already pumped, and if I'm going to watch it with the most pumped crowd of all time, that's got to be like the best experience ever.
And I guess what we're trying to say with that, Sony, is you could invite us to the Into the Spider-Verse premiere and maybe we would tweet really positive things about it.
God.
It's
I'm
too
just
late.
kidding,
We
I'm
already
kidding,
said
I'm kidding, I'm
everything.
kidding.
You're getting the why buy the cow?
Cow when you get the milk, for, free.
free.
Yeah, you're just unleashing that teat, man. Speaking of the fact that you and I both are 100% right in our opinions, and that the other one is absolutely wrong, and that is the internet, let's talk about bots. I know. No one wants to do it.
This is the intersection of everything I avoid talking about on the
We have to do it. This is via THR. It's actually really, really interesting to think about, and I think there's a number of different points to unpack. But let's get it out. Apparently, this is via THR. There was a researcher, a Morton's Bay paper. There's a link in the description that you can read on your own, but it's titled Weaponizing the Haters.
Weaponize those haters.
The Last Jedi and Strategic Politicization, of pop culture through social media manipulation. Really? You can't, let me get 10 more titles for you that are like snappier than that. Anyway, although I like weaponizing the haters, that's pretty cool.
Do you weaponize the haters before or after you dab on them?
Well, okay, so I'm gonna get this out because this is a real thing. God damn it, Spencer Gilbert, I'm gonna get this out. This is a study that was done that basically finds that Russian bots were fueling the flames of the Last Jedi controversy. It finds what are you doing?
I read the study, Roth. Plot twist. He read the study.
Okay, good. Can I get the goddamn story out?
I skimmed the study.
Exactly. You did not read the study. Can I get the goddamn story out? Thank you. Oh, the study reportedly finds evidence of deliberate organized political influence measures disguised as fan arguments. Continuing, this says that the likely objective of these measures is increasing media coverage of the fandom conflict, thereby adding to and further propagating the narrative of widespread discord and dysfunction in American society. Persuading voters of this narrative remains a strategic goal for U.S. alt-right movements as well as Russian Federation. And he said overall, there's basically a mix of fans who were legitimately displeased with the movie, which we will get into because I think that's a really important point. Those with a political agenda, trolls, and so that was like the basic mix. He said overall, 50.9% of those tweeting negatively about The Last Jedi was politically motivated or not even human. Interpret that as you will. And a number of these appear to be Russian trolls. Okay, so obviously this is a 40-page study, which I haven't skimmed yet, but I actually am going to read.
In the land of people who don't read, the man who skimmed is king. Let me tell you about this study.
But I am going to read the entire thing. This just came up this morning. I am going to read the entire thing later. I do think there's 4 points. There's just a few points that I want us to really address. One is the idea that, look, what I hope doesn't emerge from this is the idea that people who had true criticisms of this film are just the pawns of Russian bots. Now, you can go back and watch a review that Dan and I did, like before any of this came out, and we both, separately, had criticisms of this movie and things that we liked. Because that's possible. There were things that we liked and things that we were critical of, and an overall assessment of the film. Imagine that. So I do think that there are people that have true criticisms of the movie, but then there's also a tendency. The other thing that I don't want is to dismiss the fans, the true human fans that really did get toxic, and say, oh, well, you were just manipulated by Russian bots. Like, no, you chose that path to take it in a toxic direction. That really is a thing that is happening in the society right now. Or 3, dismiss the fact that the lion's share, I believe, of human beings are not residing in these camps. That when we get together and we talk to each other, that even about something that we heavily disagree about, you have very different feelings about The Last Jedi than I do, that it doesn't end in a war, in reality. So those are kind of my initial takeaways of kind of the danger of just this headline being out there.
Yes.
But that it's also interesting.
It is a very misleading headline. Here's the data set that they used. It was tweets sent directly to Rian Johnson from like the month with the movie released to like 3 months afterwards. Of that, only 20% of those were negative. So that the idea that there is like that this was split down the middle or it's mostly hated or whatever, I thought that was interesting that like only 20% of the tweets directed at it were negative. And then of those 20%, only half of them were either bots or politically motivated. And the way he figured that out was like, he didn't give a number to the number of bots, by the way. And this is only a study of like 1,000 to 2,000 tweets. the politically motivated stuff was just people who don't tweet about movies. Like, they're mostly like, Trump, you're my big wet president. I love you. I hate people who aren't like me. The Last Jedi sucked. Like, it politically motivated was just looking at the accounts to see if they like broke their pattern of politics to tweet about The Last Jedi. He didn't say that it was a very, very, very tiny number of them weren't human or were very clearly automated, no profile picture number after the name. It was like an almost, not insignificant, but it was not the majority of any of what was in the study. So the headline of, oh, it's bots is dumb.
Inaccurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess then good. My concerns about the takeaway are
I totally believe that like alt-right
that's
chud
what's
people
people
took advantage of The Last Jedi to make a point like, I don't like there's a girl or whatever, that they seized on that as an opportunity to further some kind of political agenda because they saw an opportunity to do that. But I think sadly those are real people.
Well, I mean, I think that what's interesting, then maybe the real discussion to come out of this is like this idea of a completely divided country is just becoming so self-perpetuated. You know what I mean? Like the more that we focus in, I mean, we tend to hear as human beings the negative more than the positive, right?
I know it all blends. You can say a million nice things about me, and I think everyone will just notice the four mean things.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's just our nature.
And that is the ratio of good to bad things you could say about me.
The exact ratio.
Yeah.
I think that we agreed that it was like 100 negative things to 4 pretty okay things, right? That's what I heard.
Right.
Spencer's the best and I love him. So that is the end of that. But I think what's interesting about this is like that's just like biology. That's a survival instinct, right?
Oh, the people who don't think like that were tiger food like long before.
Exactly.
We could even get here.
Tigers. So what we mean by that is like biologically, I'm going to say a real goddamn thing. Biologically speaking, you are like my sibling that I never had. Biologically speaking, if you're out in the wilderness and you're looking like, oh, it's the flowers and look at the sunshine, and you're sort of like so taken with like the good things in the world, you're not attuned to the one tiger, you're dead, right? So like you are just more attuned to danger as a survival instinct, except that we don't experience real versus fake danger as different things in our brains, right? You're perceiving both as real danger, even though someone saying something mean to you is not real danger.
Yeah, we still have the same.
I think I need to be high for this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Spencer and I did it right, because we are.
I'm not even that high.
Tigers, Dan.
Tigers, man.
They're not even real. We're all tigers.
Do you not understand? The point is, like,
I'm joking.
We still have the same sapien brains that we roamed the plains with, but now our planes are Twitter.
So the point with that is just that then there does become an actual drive and an actual kind of like circumstances that create division. And then the more we talk about those circumstances that create division and focus on them and give them energy, the more they escalate and become real.
Yeah.
Well, this headline too. I saw it last night, and I was
I'm
like,
super high.
The essay is called "Weaponizing Hate," and I'm like, oh, this essay now is a weapon for the other side of this argument, because now I feel like this is going to be used as kind of like a court ruling. It's like, oh, you don't like XYZ, you're probably a troll.
Well, that's the thing, is because it's not bots. It's not what it's saying.
But
I'm
I've
not
seen
talking about
4
the
headlines
essay.
today about
Right.
this, and all of them say Last Jedi haters really Russian bots? Question mark.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not
that's the
talking
salacious
about-
headline, and that's how it's being
I'm
presented.
not talking about the content of the essay, which,
Right.
yes, if you were to read all 40 pages, which is very heady, I think I got through like 20. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But yeah, I think it's just like there were like these salacious, like Last Jedi does this, which is all very part of the agenda. This will now become a weapon for the other side. It's like, oh, because you're a troll, you're a X, Y, and Z, and I have the data to prove it right
You're a
here.
Russian agent.
Yeah.
Dan,
takeaway
are
that
you a
I-
Russian agent?
I'm not,
Okay.
that you know of. The takeaway that I took from it, that really, and I haven't had time to get through it all, but was where they sort of talked about the atmosphere in the country right now as far as politics go, and the fact that we are in a time that's very divisive. That was my biggest takeaway. That I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely see that in a sense of we were talking about it on charting last week, which is that it's so politically charged right now that even the things that used to politically charge people, like the political documentaries, Michael Moore's latest with Fahrenheit 11/9 didn't do well.
That was just about the box office, not the movie.
They're not doing well because everything is so politically charged all the time that people don't need to go see these documentaries to go hear what they want to hear for either side, because it's everywhere now. And that's the one thing from the study that I saw, was that because of the political atmosphere that we are now, almost everything now has a political bent, and people are looking to seize on something to use for their particular position. And that there were a lot of things with The Last Jedi that, you know, political groups seized on and said, like, okay, this is going to be our issue today. This is how we're going to spin it. And you know, sort of them talking about how that coalesced into the reaction, like that I get. That I understand, was like, this is a particular time where wedge issues are a thing. People are looking for ways to sort of charge up their bases, and The Last Jedi, I think, for a percentage of the people, was that thing. We see it, we still see it, we still hear it. So that I agreed with. The methodology and everything, like, you know, like the 50.9% tweeting negatively was likely politically motivated or not even human. Again, I think that's so much like, well, what's the percentage on that? What's the, you know,
it's a lot more politically motivated than bot.
Right, exactly. And even when you feel like someone that didn't like the movie was politically motivated, well, you know, I don't want to say that they then are not sincere, because I think there's some kind of tinge to this thing, like, well, then they were insincere. It's like, well, I'm not going to say whether I may disagree with their take vehemently, but I'm not going to say you're not sincere in your feelings. You
well,
might
yes
be
and
very
no, but
sincere
I
in
think
your
though,
feelings.
to oversimplify what he was saying, is the politically motivated stuff were accounts that was like Trump, 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 The Last Jedi, Trump, 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 Trump,
Right.
Trump.
Interesting.
So it's like, well, do you really care about the movie?
That's kind of conflating two things, though. It's presuming, first of all, what do words mean anymore? Like, and this is coming from me. This is one of the most interesting things about what's happening in our world right now, is that words are being redefined. So I feel like you're conflating two things. Just because someone normally tweets about Trump and then they tweet about The Last Jedi, what does politically motivated mean? Whenever the word politics around this particular movie is used, I think it means an array of things that have nothing to do with politics. They're not about who you vote for. They're not about taxes. They're not about, you know, like school systems and roads and things that are actually political issues.
I know the prequels were all
I was
about
going to say,
trade
episode
policy.
1 is
No,
all
I know.
about taxes if you're into
Space
that.
NAFTA.
Well, we're not dealing with the prequels, in which case it would be fair to describe them as such, right? And that Star Wars has always been political in the sense that it's about a war between rebels and an empire, right? But what I mean is, like, that word is now coding for when people say, oh, has Lucasfilm gotten too political? Be honest and say what that actual question is. What is that actual question?
Has it gotten too political?
Yeah, when people are like, is Disney getting too political? What are they actually asking?
I don't think Star Wars movies have changed.
They haven't, but I'm saying when
Which is
people,
interesting. So
ask
when
that.
people use that word, what are they actually saying in this context?
I don't know. I feel like political has become like gluten. Like anything that's just bad for you, it's probably gluten. It's probably political. It's probably I put it all in the same thing.
I think that 90% of the time, like the words that we're using are coding for other things and other issues. And when they say that, when on one side it's like, to me, you're jumping to an assumption if you see someone tweeting about Trump a lot and then you see them tweeting about Star Wars. They may have nothing to do with each other, you know? On the other side, when there is this small, and again, like, I just want to emphasize, I truly believe this is a small portion of the audience, a very, very minor portion of the audience that is reacting so hyperbolically on either side of the equation.
From the numbers, it's 10%.
Yeah. But that said, is when the word political is used, typically I think they're like, oh, is Disney too political? If they mean, is it including women? Is it including people of color? Is it becoming too PC? Is it political where characters are included that I don't want to see? This is my assumption, because they feel forced to by the nature of left-wing politics, right? And that's what they're actually saying, right? When they use the word political, but it's not
So
about
you're saying
politics.
they're exchanging political for
Social
inclusive?
issues. Yeah, for
essentially.
social or inclusiveness or whatever it is, they're subbing in the word political because the word political is charged at the
It's
moment.
short for politically correct.
Yeah, it's short
Yes,
for politically
PC.
correct. It's
Kathleen
short
Kennedy
for.
took a picture with a shirt on that said the force is female, and a lot of people think that means to the exclusion of males.
Sure.
So, political.
And that's the other, like, it just becomes like that's actually that's actually not true, you know. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like we can't even begin to unpack fact because we jump to the biggest, the most hyperbolic conclusion in any given situation. And in this situation, the headline is Russian bots created the Last Jedi controversy because that's a great headline.
Great headline.
I'm clicking it, you know. But is that the truth? Is that the actual fact of what happened? Is that actually containing the nuance of what's going on? Is there any truth to that, though? Would Russian bots benefit from this controversy?
Well, from divisiveness, yes. I mean, yeah. There's certainly an advantage to be gained by furthering divisions within a country's, you know, creating chaos, creating. Yeah, of course, there's advantage to be had, but to the degree of like, to what did they? I'm sure there are Russian bots working on behalf of every issue that there is. There's probably Russian bots ready to go on Venom this weekend, you know. But how much of it was, you know? Again, this is the politics and the film and everything all combines in this one. The Last Jedi, in a weird way, is like the nexus point of everything that's happened in pop culture or in American culture for the last 2 years.
It's very
all
strange.
combines in this weird black hole of a movie called The Last Jedi, and it's like,
But what's
I don't
funny
want
is
to get
like
sucked into
I
the
feel
gravity
like
well.
I've completely lost perspective on the actual like film Last Jedi, and it's more just the hoopla around it. Like I've kind of even forgotten about the movie itself, and I know I liked it when I saw it, but it's like the movie's almost irrelevant to what Last Jedi like has become culturally. It's very bizarre.
It's like a monolith.
I never would have picked a year ago that movie to be like a year from now we will still be hotly like in the news about not just entertainment news but just like in general. Like that just doesn't seem like the movie that would do it. It's very strange to me.
I don't have solutions for us. I wish. I find this really fascinating. I find this entire because I do think that it is kind of encapsulating all these things. But the biggest thing is just like joking aside, it feels almost impossible to just talk to each other, right? Like, because to me the conversation, if someone really does suddenly feel discluded from Star Wars, right, which they loved it their whole life and they felt like it was very much something that represented who they are and their identity, and suddenly for one reason or another, whatever it is, they feel discluded, I feel like that's an okay conversation to have, you know, and be like, well, why do you feel that way? And like, if you don't have the conversation and if you don't get to the space where somebody, that fan or that segment of fandom, or in this case, feels better about it and feels heard, then you're just going to end up in this constant the lightsaber's ripping itself apart moment, right? But we shut that down by just screaming.
Well, I mean, yes and no,
hyperbolic.
because of course, like there's so many awesome, intelligent, level-headed conversations that we've all had with each other and with people online about The Last Jedi, pros and cons, from a filmmaking perspective, story arc, character arc. Like, I think it's been really fun to engage with smart, thoughtful people about this movie on all sides of the opinion gap. But when someone is like, I don't like that the Star Wars is now for the feminists and the blacks, it's like, I don't need to engage with you and respect your opinion. Like there is no talking to this. It's a small number of people. It is 50% of 21%.
I also don't feel like that's exclusive to Last Jedi, though. That's
Totally.
Just like
That's
why
anytime
it's strange
you talk
to me
about a
that
movie.
this is
Right.
like you said, the black hole apex. Like, why does it always come back to this?
Every
one
movie,
thing?
every discussion of every movie for the last 10 months, trust me, we see them, comes back from at least one person somehow to The Last Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
It is like 6 degrees of I don't want to talk about this
anymore. It's the new Hitler for online arguments.
It can be, I promise you, if it is a discussion about Deadpool 2, go to any page with Deadpool 2 content and go to the comments and scan, and I promise you at the bottom of some conversation it'll get to, at least it wasn't as bad as The Last Jedi, every single time.
Do you think that's a bot?
No, I think
6
it's someone
degrees
that
of-
needs to go
of
find
Last
something
Jedi.
else. This should not be the center of anyone's life. This movie.
I except for ours right now, and and the reason is I actually think this new information is fascinating. I think it does speak to layer upon layer upon layer of what's happening for us in entertainment and for what's happening for us in terms of culture and how we speak to each other. I tried to present those ideas in as I'm high and this cigarette is the secret to the universe way as I possibly could. So yes, Dan, that's true.
You're right. It does teach us that the shrillest, dumbest, and very small minority of people get the most attention and consequently hold more power than they should. So that is a perfect metaphor for our times.
I do think there'll be a documentary about The Last Jedi and everything around it, like a 30 for 30 type thing.
How about a remake?
At some point.
I feel like there should be, but where I would agree to disagree with you, Spencer, for the 5th time in this
taste is
episode,
terrible.
that this time is real. I wish there was a way that we could own that these conversations that are the loudest are not the most representative of the majority, because I think that the more we act as if they are representative of like the sky is falling, the more that becomes true in our society, and the more we're seeing the results and the implications of that happen. And most people don't want this. Most people really don't want this, is my true belief. That said, I think that we can't disagree. We can't, it's hard, but opening up to listening to somebody that has a fundamentally different opinion than me, like a person, I just saw a video today that I've heavily disagreed with about a word and the use of the word and what it meant. But I wish I could just talk to that person, not because I think I'm going to change their mind, because I think the exercise is important. There's a limit, right? There's a limit to that, where it's like you can't open the dialogue, because opening the dialogue then in essence justifies or gives value to what the other person is saying. And if they're like, say, a Nazi, you don't want to do that, right? But before you get to that point of no return, if someone is just like, I feel discluded now, I think that is an okay conversation to have, because why do you feel that way? And like, why are you hurting? And then how can we move past it so that it doesn't feel that way anymore? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Probably not, but
no, it does. It does, and it's a different conversation than one to be had on a movie show. But
it also assumes that every
it's
movie,
my show. We're doing what we want.
like, you can engage with someone's like, I feel discluded or discredited now by Star Wars, and it's okay to walk away like being like, why do you feel that way? Because XYZ. Okay, sorry you didn't like it. Good thing there's one every single year. Like, it's okay to not come to a definitive, are we all happy here at the table now? Like, that's movies. They're all very subjective, and there are movies that you probably think are terrible that reach me in some emotional way that I can't explain. Is probably the same way. We don't all have to walk away kumbaya, we feel good about this one thing,
Yeah, and I don't think that's realistic that you will on any given issue. That said, it's like, I'm never going to agree with certain perspectives ever. But there might be a little loosening up. Like, if somebody's just coming at me hardcore, like about why they hate women, for example, my back's just going to get really up about it, and then you're just in this stasis. Versus if someone's coming at me with like being honest and saying like, I feel discluded from this movie now because it's got a female protagonist, I'm happy to have that conversation. Because that's like a real feeling, whether I agree that makes sense or not. That's my perspective. What's yours?
Yeah.
Am I making any sense?
You're just a better person than me, because when
I'm
somebody
not.
reveals themselves to be awful, it's like we've spent enough time in art and politics and everything trying to suss out and figure out and rehabilitate awful people, and it's just like, can we just move on?
Yeah. Do you know the tire fire in The Simpsons that's perpetually burning, and every time it cuts to it, it's like the tire fire that's The Last Jedi. It's like, I have put the tire fire out months ago, and yet, like, talking about movies is more than one movie. Literally hundreds of other movies have come out since The Last Jedi, and yet, here we are. I want to move away from the tire fire. I'm tired of the fumes, and I think that people, what is yet to be said from people that either liked or disliked The Last Jedi that at this point has not already been said. it's just a big old
That it's
echo
Russian
chamber.
bots?
It's a big echo chamber at this point. Can we just move away from the tire fire and let it burn away from it? It can just burn away from me.
I hear
Because
you.
It's like I'm all about discourse and I'm all about discussion and conversation. And but what conversation discussion about this film has not yet been had that needs to be had?
The Russian bot one?
Yeah. Well, we had that. Now we can put it to
But
bed.
now we've had the Russian bot conversation, and next week we'll be coming to you with all the controversy inevitably surrounding A Star Is Born. I mean, that one's got to be pretty free
yeah.
of controversy, right? She asked, and then
There is, though.
And there, oh shit!
The
All right.
little monsters are slamming Venom in a misguided fan attempt to have people see that movie instead.
Oh,
of
the
Venom.
Gaga fans.
Yeah.
Yeah. She don't need any help. People are gonna go
Yeah.
see A Star Is Born.
Don't worry
it's gonna
about
be
it.
a hit.
Be confident.
Be confident.
They're both good. Or people will see both.
Yeah.
It's not the same audience.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. Is
Yeah.
that people that are hardcore fans of things, there's a small subset that think that you will like my thing and nothing else, and I'm going to destroy everything that's not the thing that I love, and that's another problem that's going on with this movie too.
Well, exactly. But why is that happening? Because we keep acting as if that's the way to deal with each other instead of dealing with each other in a different way. And if this were sort of like, I don't believe it is, given what Spencer's just revealed about the actual study, but pretend this was like an infiltrated attempt to destabilize the United States further or
Through
make
Star
us
Wars.
look like the monkeys, the like crap throwing like zoo animals of the world.
First YouTube movie channels, then the government.
Yeah, it's like even if it was that, like the best way to not let that win is to not behave that way. And so, like, go see A Star Is Born and Venom this weekend.
Take that,
I am.
Putin. I saw
You
both.
are.
I'm going Wednesday to Stars Born and Friday to Venom. Gonna
Exactly.
Open up all of the different variety that's out there.
And that is how you are doing your part to stand up to dictatorships everywhere. This has been one of the weirder shows, and that means I liked it. I think I set us up appropriately when I said this was going to be one for the books. What do you think, Dan?
Something.
I like your Todd McFarlane Spider-Man shirt, by the way.
Thank
Dan.
you.
Yeah,
That's
good
really
cover.
cool. Yeah. One of my favorite Spider runs.
We're going to end this by saying nice things to each other. Dan, you're awesome. You're such a good critic.
Thank you.
You're so smart. You add so much to our program. And even when I don't agree with you, which actually isn't that often, but still when I don't, I learned something. So that's nice. Spencer Gilbert, one of the smartest, funniest people I know. And I think that we can both agree that my opinion's right and yours wrong. I'm glad we've come to this on this day.
I'm going to treat you like the other, like the 10% of 20% and just ignore that you exist.
Okay, fair. That's totally fair.
Mute.
Billy the Business already does that on a daily basis, and I think you're killing it. And
Roth will
that
go
job.
off on the phone sometimes, and then she'll be like, and then you're not listening, and you stopped listening 5 minutes
I know
ago.
which percentage of whatever I said you heard, and it's usually 45%. So I appreciate that 45% attention, and your 45% attention today. You're one of the world's best producers. You guys have a good day. Be nice to each other. Why not? Welcome back, JTE. He was out, he got hurt, and he has been like a trooper, and he's come back, and we are so happy to have him back. Send him some love any way you can, and watch Honest Trailer commentary. Venom review tonight, live at 7 with Miss Danielle Radford and Dan Murrell. It's going to be awesome, right here live.
7 Pacific.
And then I'll be doing my Star Is Born for the 10 of you that would like to see it later this week. I'll also be enacting the entire movie. Playing Bradley Cooper.